Hi, welcome to this week's video. So this week we're going to be turning this into a travel mug using this insert. Now, one of the statements I see quite a lot on my other channel is why are you using a piece of wood that big for something like that. So I'm going to try and explain here. So the maximum diameter you're ever going to get out of a turning, unless you want to keep the bark on, is whatever it is across there. So that's about maximum you're ever going to get out of that is probably about 95. A travel mug which I'm making needs an outside diameter at the top of about 84, but obviously I want it to come out a little bit, so probably realistically I'm probably going to be looking at about 87. Now this log is part seasoned. I don't know what the moisture content is on the inside until we start turning it, but there's still a fair amount of shrinkage left to do as this log dries out. So once we've turned it, you could quite easily still get 10% shrinkage from the outside. So why is that flashing? So if we turn this, if we end up with about 100mm at the most, if we were to get 10% shrinkage, that would take it down to 90, which is roughly the size I want anyway. So that's the reason why I pick a log this size, especially when I know that it's not dry and the moisture content is still quite high. So I reckon it's probably about 35% that. So what we'll do is we'll get this on the lathe, we'll turn it parallel, and then we'll see what size we've got. Okay, so starting off, this is just mounted between centres at the moment. What we'll do is obviously get it round and then take the ends down, get those nice and straight, and then we'll get it mounted in a chuck properly. Okay, so starting off speed, because obviously it's not balanced up yet. We'll see what we're going to take this to. So already a bit of wobble in the lathe there, so that's just under 700. Okay, so that's rough cut now, obviously parallel, and then we are, where's that flashing again? We are left with 95. So that's the biggest diameter we could get out. Now we want about 83 at the top, out towards 87 at the sort of top quarter of a mug. So once this is dried, this will shrink in. We're not really going to be left with a lot to play with. Let's get my moisture meter and see what it's at. Right, so 37%. So that's still quite high. Yeah. Okay, so we'll get this turned around now and get it mounted on a chuck, which is obviously going to be needed for taking the centre out. Okay, so we're going to drill this out. We're going to be doing it in steps just to make it easier on the tools. We want to take it to about 65mm, I think, and then we'll take it for drying. Then you wouldn't really want to try and drill. Hang on. So 65 is what we want to get to, just for the rough cutting. So we'll start off with it's 25, and then we'll just go up in increments. It just makes it easier for drilling. You wouldn't want to try putting a 65mm cutter all the way down. It'd just either stall the lathe. That's a lot of material to try and take off in one go. So you just want to do it in nice easy steps really. So we'll do that next. that's it. We'll now take this for drying. So the easiest way to know whether the wood is dry enough or not is by weighing it. So, don't know, can you see? No. So that at the moment is 747 grams. So write that on the side or take a note of it, and then obviously measure your moisture content. So we've got an average now of probably, let's just say it was 35% at 747. So we want to try and take this down to maybe about 10-12% moisture content. I'll just do the maths on my phone. 35. So we want to lose basically 25% of 747. So we will consider this our ideal moisture content when that gets down to 560 grams. So I'm going to put this in the oven now. Okay, so I've got a temperature probe in there because you can't rely on what this is actually saying. So what we'll do is you want to bring the temperature up quite slowly. You don't want to just put it into a massively hot oven. So we'll bring this up to probably about 40 degrees, leave it for about half an hour, then increase it to 50, 60, 70, and then probably up to about 80. And then by that time, hopefully it should have dried out. Okay, so that's up to 36 degrees now, so we'll just increase that just a little bit. One thing I should say at this point is that if you're worried about wood cracking, drying it in an oven is not ideal. So you probably want to go for a more reserved way of drying it. I'm not really particularly bothered about it cracking. If it does, we'll just fill it with something. Okay, so it's now the next day. It roughly reached its target weight last night. Alright, so there's a small amount of minor cracking just on there, and then a little bit on the bottom, but nothing which is really too concerning. All I'll do on this one is just put some very thin CA glue just in it, just to stop it going any further, and just make sure it stays together when it's on the lathe. Same for these. Okay, so shrinkage wise, we're now down to 91.5, just over 90 there. So get this turned up. Okay, so it's now mounted back on the lathe, obviously. What I'll do now is I'll just run it up slowly and just see how far out of true it is. Obviously, because it has dried and it's shrunk and it's moved and everything else like that, so we'll see how far out we've got. And then also the hole, which was 65, is no longer 65. That's shrunk as well, so I think that's just over 61. So we want 65 all the way down. So the 65 will give us enough clearance up to there. This top piece here is 75. We need to go in about 35mm, and then all that'll do is leave us for taper to put on in between the two diameters. Okay, so the next one I'm going to send down is a 70mm. I'm not going to go straight up to the 75. You've got more of a chance, especially with, let me just turn this off for a minute. So the further far out you are, the more chance you've got when you're going down is one of these drills catching and then just literally tearing your work up. So it's always best, I found, just to do it nice and easy, just come up in increments, and it's normally fine. That's down 30. Okay, so we'll just put the internal taper on now. Just going to be using a carbide to do that. Just do a quick check, just make sure it fits. It does. Okay, so all I'm doing here is just brought the tailstock up. I'm just going to send that home just to hold it. It's just another place to hold it, so it gives it a bit more stability when you're turning right up here on the edge. Right, so we've got a basic shape now, so all I need to do is turn this last end piece down by about, I don't know, maybe 10 mil, just so it fits up inside the insert. Okay, so we've sanded to 600, and now we're going to probably my favourite bit is we're going to put some Danish oil on it. Right, so what we'll do with the Danish oil is we'll build it up. Obviously we'll put the initial coat on now, and then I'll let that dry, and then just keep on putting coats on, probably maybe 5-6 coats, and then let it go off, and then buff it up. Okay, so the first coat's drying. It's about 6:30 now or something like that, so it's recommended to about 4 or 5 hours in between coats, but what I'll probably do is sneak back in here tonight, probably about 10:30, put another coat on, and then drop another coat on in the morning, and then another one in the evening. That'll be 4, and then we'll see what it looks like. 4 coats, and then maybe take it to the 5th. Right, so it's now 9:30 at night. Just come out and have a look. Seems to have dried alright, so we'll just sneak another light coat on this tonight, and then again put a couple of coats on tomorrow. Okay, so this one is coat number 4. Okay, so this has now had 7 coats in total. You can see now it's quite an even sort of satin finish all the way around. So we'll get this polished up in a minute. We'll also re-key this surface round here to make sure we get a good bond when we glue the insert in. So the inside's also had a coat of Danish oil, just the 1 coat on the inside. So we'll get this polished up now. Okay, so all we're using now is just an abrasive paste. There's a few of these on the market, so it really is a case of choose your weapon. Right, so we'll just give this a final last polish now, just with a turpentine base polish and beeswax. Just key this is just a 240 grit. Okay, so the next thing we do is we'll get this parted off somewhere around about here, then we'll check the base to see if there's any minor cracks or anything which need to be filled, and then we'll get the base sanded up as well, and then get the insert glued in. Okay, so this is the base, so I can't see any cracks or anything in there which need filling. So I'll put me sanding disc onto a lathe, and then we'll get that rough sanded off, and then we'll finish it off by hand. Okay, so just before we glue it up, I'll just show you the fit. So ultimately, what you're after is a good tight fit. So if I go to push that in, it's actually stopping there. I'll have to just give it a tap to get it down a bit further. Okay, so if you've got a tight fit, you shouldn't need to put a lot of glue on around, just enough to cover it. Otherwise it will squeeze out everywhere. Here we go. Leave that to dry overnight.